we shouldn't be motivated to do things just to prove other people wrong. And what I mean by this is that we are so constantly, out to look for some validation or something that could fulfill us in life that, we just try to find things that are going to make us feel better. And, if we think that someone wronged us in our life, we always try to find some, outside factor in order to make them think that, oh man, I can't believe I shamed that person, or I can't believe I made that person feel bad because look at them now. And I think that's not a productive or, healthy way to, look at life. If you think that, or if you live your life in the stance that I have to do this in order to prove that person wrong, or I'm going to do this in order to be motivated to prove that person wrong, it can end up being more harmful than productive in the end. And it can be really detrimental to your mental health, because if you're constantly looking for validation or constantly looking to get attention from somebody, especially if from somebody that wronged you, or somebody that's not the nicest to you, or somebody who you think is better than you or bigger than you or something like that, to the point where you need to, branch out and be like, hey, I have to be better than this person, or I have to do this person to prove the haters or prove them wrong that, I was worthy of it all along. It's extremely harmful, because first of all, you search for outside validation, and in the end, it won't make you feel fulfilled. It'll make you feel, broken mentally, just because taking things that are, supposed to be healthy, like I'll use exercise or working out as an example. If you ever think that you need to be validated in order to work out, or if you ever think that you need to go to the gym just to prove other people wrong or make them, have a different opinion about you, I think the first thing that you need to keep in mind is that taking advice from these people who you wouldn't have taken advice in the first place, or people who you really don't like to be around, or who are extremely mean in a sense, it's not the best way to go about it, just because, there's so many other things to worry about. And, I guess it's human nature. We worry about the things that are the most insignificant to us, and we think it's going to be the end of the world. I mean, I can use an example. I thought that if I didn't, pass this test, the whole world was going to end, or, I was going to be in a world of hurt afterwards. And, after I took that test, yeah, I didn't get the results as I was expecting, but it wasn't like the world was ending. We treat these minuscule things in our life as something so significant, and we give it so much power. So when you look to get validation or look for motivation in order for other people, you're kind of putting yourself on a pedestal and being like, hey, look at how worthy I am, except instead of recognizing how worthy you are now. I mean, I think it's so valued that you take every single human experience in your entire life, and it has meaning. People put that off. Every single human experience, people try so hard to be perfect and appear perfect on the outside, and a lot of them struggle with the fact of their identity, and the fact, about why they're living. They question that a lot, because they're not willing to, endure the condition of being human, which is in the end making mistakes and being imperfect, and being brutally imperfect, like making a million mistakes in order to, I guess, learn from your mistakes and be okay with that. I mean, it's a big problem with me, and I think it's a big identity problem with Gen Z, just because, there's so many other people who are going to say, okay, well, I'm going to get attention from this person, and I'm going to get attention from this person, and I'm going to get attention from this person in order to make me feel better, in order to make me feel validated for, how I'm feeling. And in reality, you're not going to get much out of that in the long run, because there's always going to be somebody out there who's going to either look to put you down or look for attention in a not so realistic way. And I think that's a big hoax of the generation that kind of is promised to some people. It's the fact that they think that they can live out their life like it's a movie. You can use an example from many TV shows or movies, and you can put yourself in that situation and be like, I wish my life was like a movie, and I wish that, oh, I wish it could be this dreamy, or I wish it could be like that. But in reality, life is not like that. And, I got caught up in a mental state, a couple months ago where it was like, man, it felt like nothing wrong was happening in my life. It just felt like everything was just kind of flowing along. And it was like, well, something is bound to happen. And I was dreading that. I was dreading the arguments, or I was dreading, a lack of sleep, or I was dreading something that I just didn't want to encounter. And I think I'm trying to grow in that and embrace the fact that I'm going to be the most imperfect person in the world, and it's not going to be a problem. We try to micromanage our life to the point where it's self-destructive. I mean, if you are trying to validate yourself to find, to get attention from other people, you kind of have to step back, take 10 steps back and realize, who are these people I'm really trying to grab attention from? And are they the people I really want to get attention from? Are they the people who I want to surround myself with? Because there's 100,000 people in the world who can say hurtful things to you, and you would still take their opinion and their, insults over a beloved friend or something like that who is offering you genuine advice. I mean, I do it myself. On the internet, it's such an interesting world. If you ever experience criticism on the internet, you're going to take that opinion, or that basically hate, and take it to heart so much more than a positive compliment. Why? Because we take these insults and take them personally, even though they're on the internet, and even though some of these people are just spreading hate to hate, which is true. A lot of people on the internet have nothing better to do with their time, so they'd rather resort to spreading hate. And it's a big cycle, and it never ends, which is it's a whole nother story that I'll talk about probably another time. But what I wanted to hone in on today is that motivation is kind of a hard thing to work off, because motivation is something that's fading. It's not going to be like, every single day you wake up and I'm like, I'm motivated to do this. I feel like I have all the power to do this. I am the best, and that's a great mindset. I mean, I wish I had that mindset every single day, but in reality, it's not that. And it's unrealistic to think that. And I think that we get caught up in the unrealistic and try to make it our reality, and it eventually just becomes a big problem. If I talk to 100 people on the street and be like, what was your, wish you had, or what was your dream? And they would try to make up something unrealistic. It would be something unrealistic to them, but it would shift, because unrealistic. I'm going to reword that. I want to make this genuine, and I want to make this raw, no cutting. I think that a dream is the most genuine and human response ever. Because forget about, the pressures of the world and job and rent and money. It's a big problem. But I'm saying dreams, baseline. When you ask a little kid what they want to be when they grow up, they're going to say, I want to be, a fireman, or I want to be a doctor, or something like that. Or, at least for me, and I don't know, I just got to get out there. But, oh, I want to be a director, I want to be a screenwriter, oh, I want to be a princess, I want to be a fairy, I want to be a mermaid. And those type of emotions are coming from the most genuine place, because as we get older, we become more and more unrealistic with ourselves. And we kind of close ourselves off from something just because we see, and as the phones are just becoming more and more of a problem, and it makes us more, susceptible to accepting failure. In terms of, because when you're scrolling on your phone, getting a bunch of dopamine hits over and over again, you're getting immediate response. You're getting immediate, dopamine hits over and over again, and you don't really have to do anything for it. So when you ever try to do something outside of scrolling, because your brain is so conditioned to scrolling, it feels like impossible. And even if you have the willpower to do it, once you fail one time, you're going to be wanting to quit all the time. And I think that's what I struggle with too. If I'm struggling all the time and I'm failing, I'm more likely to quit right there than power through. And it's a big problem. It's a big problem. Where we find our motivation and where it's rooted in is truly in our our biggest desires and our biggest dreams. That's why I think like that Simon Squibb guy, I think it's so important to understand what our biggest dreams are and what we really care about, because in the end, if we don't, cherish what our actual dreams are, they'll never come true. Because if you ever talk to any old person, they'll say their biggest regret is not pursuing what they really wanted to do or not being genuine. I think that's the hoax of the internet, is because people never want to be genuine. They want to, put a mask on and be like, hey, I'm living this life, and in reality, they're not living that life. And it's so silly to me. It seems so unrealistic and kind of stupid. And, people can have their own opinions and be like, it's a coping mechanism or something like that. I don't think so. I don't want to live in that reality. I kind of want to be genuine, because these fake emotions, of course, they're always rooted in trauma. I think so too. Because if someone, is a smart aleck, I guess I'll use that as an example, and they think they know everything all the time, and they kind of act condescending to you as an example, it doesn't feel good. But it's also not a good mentality to think that because they acted condescending to you, or because they thought they knew everything in the world, and because you felt insulted by that, you're motivated to do something to prove them wrong. Well, in the first place, why are you taking advice, or why are you motivated from somebody who you wouldn't even want to have a conversation with? You would rather die, which is kind of silly, as a hypothetical. But it's true, because there's 100 people I could ask on the street who would much rather be motivated by hate than positivity. And I think it's a big hoax, and it's a big hoax that Gen Z is being told, and it's rooted in every single thing that we do. It's something I struggle with, because I'm making this video, but I've struggled with it myself before, where it's like I'm looking for validation from every single thing except myself. In the end, the only thing I can trust is really myself and my own decisions. So if I'm always doubting what I'm doing, or if I'm always looking for sources of attention or sources of, unneeded energy, or I guess intentions, people always have like bad intentions for you. They're always against you. And I saw a great video where it was talking about people love you until you win. People love you until you succeed. And it's the truest thing in the entire world, because they would much rather cheer you on from the sideline, but once you score the touchdown, they get confused and be like, I thought this guy was a big joke. They love to downplay your achievements, which is incredibly stupid. Because you can spend so much less energy encouraging somebody rather than putting them down. People love putting each other down. And it's just human nature. So, that was really what I wanted to talk about. Not getting too caught up in being motivated by outside sources, especially people you don't like and you kind of want to prove them wrong. But more recently, just taking advice from yourself and listening to yourself and being like, if I want this for myself, no one's going to hand it to me. No one's going to save me. So I have to do this on my own, and I shouldn't be looking for other people in order to get this done. I should be doing it on my own because I really want this, So that's the video. I am very, very happy that I made a twist, But, I think in the end, if we want our goals to happen, our biggest dreams, it has to be from us, and people talk about luck all the time, but luck can only go a certain way. There's a certain time where we have to kind of do it ourselves, and it's like, well, it's not by willpower, it's kind of by it is by willpower, and I have to think before I speak. It is by our own willpower, it is by our own determination to achieve our goals, our biggest dreams, because I don't want to live, 40 years from now, someone asks me, oh, what was your biggest regret? And tell them I wasn't driven to achieve my biggest goals. I wasn't trying to achieve what I wanted in life. Well, it's hard to look at it, 10 miles away. But I think as I keep making these videos and as I keep on progressing, I'm going to be learning every single day. And, I keep telling myself, oh, I'm going to make a short film. I'm going to make a short film. Blah. No, because I'm so lazy and I got to get over that. Too lazy. too lazy. So that's the video. Thank you for watching. I looked at my retention. The average watch time is like 26 seconds. So to anybody who stayed to watch this video, give yourself a pat on the back, and don't subscribe. All right, that's a video.